The Ford Focus is among the most selling vehicles worldwide, and now there is the 4th generation. So this all-new generation here in exterior, interior and the driving experience will be today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars today with Thomas. We'll enjoy that, of course. Not only the hatch, the 5-door, we'll also make a comparison to the Estate, or Tournier as we say in Germany, in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front we can now see a wider Ford fishbowl and also wider headlamps, optional with adaptive LED headlamps now. And so altogether already sportier in the base versions, and we also have the ST line here today with a body kit with a stronger here in the lower area. Also LED fog lamps are mounted here too, and the color, this is a true Thomas Blue, how we call it here in Autogefühl. And my favorite design feature are those design lines on the hood, pretty powerful. Although this is just one of the smaller petrol engines here today, it looks pretty powerful in the hood design. 4.38 m or 14'4" is the total length of the Ford Focus, and this new generation, that's just a difference of 2 centimeters, so they haven't changed it much in size. The ST line comes with a badge right there and standard 17-inch rims. Those ones here are the optional 18-inch rims. They look, of course, pretty massive. The ST line also has a stronger bumper in the lower part there. And we have black window frames, and this looks a little bit cheap because it's just, you know, like rubber style. I think it should have been made more premium alike. Other than that, big door handles you can see. Interesting design lines. See here, one is above the door handles, then dividing in light and shadow. And the most interesting piece is right here. It has basically a coupe style at the rear door. Also, when you open the door, you know, it looks like this. This is, you know, pretty interesting. And you can already see it right there. We also have for all doors optional this feature, those rubber pads, that you don't damage any other cars or your own car when you open the door, maybe in a closed parking lot. And we can see that the taillights already begin right here. This will be very interesting in the rear perspective. The new Ford Focus is about 88 kilograms lighter, so they've saved some weight. And the rear has also been completely redesigned. That's probably the biggest change, because now also the hatch gets those horizontally drawn taillights. They have a bigger stance than overall for the car on the road. The car appears wider, and doesn't it look a little bit like a new Mercedes A-Class? I think so, but the question is, who copied whom? Well, you can argue about who was first in this respect, but of course it's a current design trend to make horizontally drawn taillights, and those compact hatches all look somewhat similar. What's also interesting is that those focus letters, they are, you know, as taken over from like vintage premium cars. They're very widely spread now over there. It looks pretty nice, I think. And you can see also for the small petrol engines, we already get real exhaust tips, and Ford calls this honest design. I think that's also what our viewers here appreciate, don't you? And this is the new Estate variant, or also called Tournier in Germany. 4.66 m or 15'3", and this is a difference now because that one here has grown about 10 centimeters in length. So whereas the hatch relatively remained the same, they made the Estate a little bit longer, especially to reach a bigger trunk volume. And I can already tell you so far that the trunk volume here on the inside, I will soon show you as well, this one will now almost be at the segment above room, so the volume room rise. Pretty interesting. Design-wise, you can see also here this bright roof rail. This is also the ST line, so we can directly compare it also with the same color, same rims to the hatch version. I would like to know from you which one would you prefer, design-wise and also practicability-wise. Would you go here for the Estate, or would you just remain with the normal 5-door? The 3-door, by the way, will not be available, but in some markets, not in Europe, not in Germany, in the US, but you will then get a sedan as well as a 3rd variant. So the hatch of the Estate can also be bought as an electric one. That, if you don't have it, you also have practical handles to pull it again. 1,650 liters is now the boot space. 140 liters plus if you compare it to the previous generation, so you really have gained some. And this one, by the way, would be a little bit flatter, but there's some special sound equipment inside for a demo later, which would not be in the car otherwise. So we leave it that way at the moment because we're lucky to be able to show you that. So it would be a little bit flatter right there, but you can see square dimensions. There's also a cover which we have demounted here already right now, and then on the sides you can actually flip the seats, both sides. Here we go. And then we can also load longer things through. So this offering of room is really pretty decent. Fiesta and the Mustang and special Ford Performance parts paint behind us. Pretty fancy, right? A little bit too much, I think. But what about the engines for the new Ford Focus? No hydraulic struts, and you can relatively see pretty much. And we have turbo petrol engines, 1 liter with 85, 100 or 125 horsepower. The latter one is this one here, so 1 liter, 125 horsepower, all 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine. This one could also come with an 8-speed automatic gearbox. And then there's a 1.5 liter turbo petrol with 150 horsepower. That one could also come with the 8-speed automatic optional. And there's the top petrol so far, 182 horsepower, then 8.3 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And they are 4-cylinder diesels, 1.5 with 95 or 120 horsepower, or a 2-liter diesel with 150 horsepower, the strongest one, 8.5 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And the 2 stronger diesels are also available optional with the 8-speed automatic gearbox. Other than that, all come as standard with a 6-speed manual, also the one we are driving here today. And of course later then we expect again a Focus ST with a bigger petrol engine and also an RS at the very later stage, probably then with an iteration of the engine we see today already. This is the car key, slim and light. You can also open it here, but there's also keyless entry available. You close the car always when you put your thumb on this area here, and then open it, put it right there, and then also the side mirror flips in and out. If you have this mirror package, that's of course quite handy. Then door closing sound, pretty solid. Of course, we also have for the front doors here those optional rubber pads. I think still a quite clever idea. With the new generation they worked on the materials, soft touch here on the top part. That looks quite clean, gloss cover right there. It's not super premium or something, but everything is quite solid. And bigger spot for the bottles, optional B&O sound system if you like music. ST line has this entry badge there in the lower part and some more sporty elements. Then here the top dashboard is also soft touch, and then an ST line sporty steering wheel, quite compact, red stitches on the inside, flat bottom. And then we have those fabric seats. They also have red contrast stitches right there, very beautifully done. I'll soon test out how they are in comfort. And let's get inside. Well, it's standard compact hatch, basically it has a relatively sporty seating position. I see it's a heated windscreen. You can always get it optional. This is pretty famous among Ford drivers, especially if you don't have a basement garage or a normal garage. And in winter times you need some defreezing, then the heated windscreen is great. As for me, I always see those little lines in the windscreen. Do you? Some see them, some not. Those ones here are the manual pump it up your seats, but you can also get it the very same seat with the electric function if you like so, if you want to pay the extra. The lower turning knob here is for the back lumbar area, and that's normal here in the front. And then there's a turning knob for the rear part. Well, again, it's a very standard compact hatch seating position. So it's not that we would say, oh man, it's super comfortable, but it's also not uncomfortable, let's say. Again, you know, pretty mediocre. It's also not different from the previous generation, and also not really different from other compact hatches. Steering wheel can be adjusted, height and also in reach. That works pretty well. So I think most people can find a suitable position here. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". You don't know that if you're not subscribed, so subscribe now if you haven't. And that leaves still some headroom here. However, we have the panoramic roof mounted right here. We'll soon show you that in detail. If you want more headroom in the front, you could also leave that out. Interior overview, there you can again see this sporty ST-line steering wheel with cruise control controls on the left side and also for the volume and picking up phone on the right side. Then we have rather classic instruments, Sumo deals with that. Then optional new 8-inch screen. It is placed higher actually. Visually that's maybe not that good for design, but it is good for your view because when it's higher you can have it better on your eyesight with the new Ford Think 3 system. Soon details also to that. Volume knob is still here, by the way, and big air vents here, the middle ones, and the classic AC unit in the lower part, but with those soft rubber pads around, and they will, you know, they won't get so nice after a while. This is not really very durable. And in the very low part we have an inductive charging platform, USB port and a 12-volt power supply. Then here with a 6-speed manual gearbox today. The automatic is also available. That one looks really fancy then. The new 8-speed automatic transmission with this turning knob looks a little bit Jaguar-alike for sure. And again, just to mention again, the soft touch on the top of the dashboard. Everything looks a little bit cleaner than before with a little less knobs. The instruments are really interesting. You can see here, they are not all digital, but they're also not completely analog. It's something in between. You can see this layer is just illuminated from the rear. And then the real digital part is the small one there in the middle. And this is the new head-up display, a new option. It's good that you have that in your line of sight with the allowed speed and the current speed, for example. However, it's not reprojected in the total windscreen. There's a separate glass layer. There you can see when it's out with the engine, and then the glass layer also flips in when you leave the vehicle. Infotainment system, you can see you can connect it to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with a cable, and the sound of this optional B&O system is really amazing. So for a compact hatch, if you're a music lover, that's a worthwhile extra, really cool sound. One disadvantage is here, if you're in the CarPlay system and then go back to the sync system, you can only use the map here of your own smartphone, and that's it. So there's a problem. So I have to put the cable out, and then I can access again the GPS of the real car, and I think that's a big flaw because you maybe don't have the internet connection of your own smartphone always on the right spot, and then you want to use the in-car sat-nav if you paid so much money for this big screen as well, because this one is also pretty decent. You see the visualization is also pinch and zoom, quite nice with the Think 3. Well, the other solution would be using this here and then connecting the phone via Bluetooth. That's still possible, and then use the inductive charging platform, for example, to charge your phone while that. And there's also a nice new rear view camera with a better resolution. You can see it right there. There's also a parking beeper for the front and the rear. You can also change the view a little bit. This is then, you know, more at the sides a little bit. This would be the normal rear view. Middle console has this cover here, and then you have cup holders where you can define the size of the bottle. I mean, why not? Interesting solution for that. Electric handbrake also to clean up this area here. And then there's this armrest, which is not that fixedly attached overall. You have decent space inside and another USB supply. So this optional panoramic roof, you have a sunshade there when it gets a little bit hot. Of course, if you're in a very hot climate, you should just stay with a normal closed roof. And you can also open this one. Wow, it goes pretty wide. Interesting. And when you open it, look at this upper area here and also listen to the sound. That is, I think, pretty loud, and this whole mechanism is not too pleasing, I have to say. So, but when it's open, then it gets nice, because this is, you know, not a wide opening in lengthwise, but it's very wide overall, and leaves a lot of light, of course, in the interior. But looking at this mechanism, I'm not really sure if I would tell you that you should go for this option. And now as for the rear, well, it's not the specialty of this vehicle, maybe a little bit better than before. We also have this gap in the front seat, but when a tall driver is driving in the front, it does exactly work with my knees than here in the rear. Yeah, it does work, but nothing more. So the package could be a little bit better. The door doesn't open too wide, and headroom with panoramic roof installed, it also directly fits for me, you know, with the 1.86 or 6'1", but nothing more. Again, more headroom when you remove the panoramic roof. Other than that, well, the bench is also relatively short again. I think it's still quite okay. I wonder how that one plays out in the estate when we sit here in the rear. Usually the estates just have a longer trunk. I will, you know, looking forward to that, if that will make any headroom or knee room difference. Other than that, we can also flip the seats directly from here in a 1/3, 2/3 split, like this. There's also Isofix in the lower area. I will soon also show you how it plays out from the trunk. And we also have a middle armrest with adaptive cup holders. That's nicely done. And we can also open a ski hatch from here to load things through. By the way, this car has a very flat middle tunnel. It's also front-wheel drive only. And above that flat middle tunnel is also 12-volt power supply, where you can, for example, put an adapter in and then have 2 USB supplies for the rear passengers. Here you can see the Isofix on the outer seats, but you know, those covers here, well, I'm not sure if it's pre-production still or not. I think not. There are still some minor plastic parts, especially at, you know, some levers or something, which look, you know, not quality enough to me. And now let's take a look at the hatch of the hatch, inside the hatch. So here we go. And this is now 1,350 liters, pretty amazing. 100 liters more than before, probably the best thing of this new generation. Square dimension, wow, you can really very well use that you just get an impression of how a cabin trolley looks inside here. Like this. You can even put it there or like this. Pretty cool, right? So this really gives you a lot of room. This would be the ski hatch, as I showed you earlier. Below this cover here we have the B&O sound system, and this ring here is just as protection because below that is really another spare tire. Also very interesting. And then, well, flipping the seats is theoretically possible from here too. If you reach over, it's not too easy. And like this, of course, comes a little bit handier if you just go around then to the door. And then we have the maximum loading setup of the figure I mentioned. 1,350 liters is then the maximum setup you have. This is for a compact hatch really decent. And now this one here is the estate. I wanted to compare the rear. Well, in the front of my knees, I'm not sure. the difference is not really there. Maybe there's just the seat is just a little notch differently. This electric seat. Also headroom wise, well, I think if it's a little difference, a little bit. So maybe just a slight more headroom. But if you would ask me now, just close my eyes and say, is it hatch or estate? I could not really tell. So if there's a difference, there's a minor one. The big difference between hatch and the estate is really the trunk area, whereas the hatch has already a very big one. It's just that this one is even longer. And we are starting with Thomas's driving lounge, the driving part of this very review. So the question is, you have asked me before, difference, the new Ford Fiesta and the new Ford Focus, if you're thinking about those two. And also, what's the difference to the previous generation in driving? And since this is here the ST line, we also have a sportier suspension setup. So is this sporty enough, or is it too sporty, or in which direction does that really go? So this will be very interesting. And we're starting with some city driving, and we also head on out to the motorway. We can show you something more of this engine performance, of course. So far, shifting here goes very smoothly. That's something which Ford usually handles very well. But the rear window is a little bit open. I directly heard that because you can really hear the difference here now. This new generation, now about 50 kilometers an hour. Soon there will be a lower speed zone. It's really very silent. So we'll test it again, of course, when we go to the motorway to check that one out. But the first impression is definitely that it's more silent than the previous generation. You also feel that we have the sport suspension because the car sits a little bit stiffer on the road. So it already gives you a very sporty approach. And I mean, this is not the very base engine, but one of the lower spec engines still somewhat, and not too expensive. Base price is about 19,000 euros if you take the German example, but you can also get one to 30,000, so that's possible too, or 34 even if you pick a diesel automatic with a high trim, for example. Again, they have managed to give you a very natural steering feel. That's very interesting. So it feels very natural, but look at that, how direct it is at the same time. That's pretty cool. So a great steering setup, and also this stiffer suspension gives you a good sporty response. We will see when we get over some bumps and stuff, how that one plays out then. If it's at the moment, the road is quite even, but so far I feel that it gives you some more driving fun. For example, that's pretty cool. By the way, I'm not sure if you hear that on camera, but sometimes the car gives me a little beep feeling, and that's always when I exceed the speed limit, like as the car shows it. At the moment 50 is allowed, and as soon as I reach 51, beep. That's pretty annoying. I mean, I can understand the sense behind this function, but to me this is very annoying because, I mean, if you're like 49, 51, 49, 59, 51, always the beep sound, and usually the tachometers, if you compare it to the GPS figures, you can drive like 53, 54, and on GPS it's still 50, because they want to be sure never to show less speed than it actually is, so they make this safety zone. So I really tend not to exceed speed limits, but I usually drive like, when 50 is allowed, 53 or something, then in reality I'm driving maybe 49. But in this case the car doesn't want that. If you have this option on, I'm pretty sure you can disable it somewhere very deep in the menu. But to me the most important thing about this vehicle is really that The steering characteristic is superbly done. Shifting is also fun here with the manual gearbox. The automatic gearbox will then show you in a later review, for example, how this new 8-speed converter automatic gearbox plays out. That will also be very interesting, and also with this new shifting lever. So one of the main findings here already is that this new Ford Focus generation is there's a very old one, is sportier than the one we had before. So just with some upgrades here, maybe with the ST line, you can have a sporty feeling like you maybe had with a true ST before, and so an added dynamism to the whole model range for sure. Then this noise insulation, it helps you to relax a little bit. Here when the road is a little bit more bumpy, not that even as before, then you feel that with the ST line stiffer sport suspension, you have to like that. It's still in the area where we could say this suits for your your everyday driving life. That's not a big problem. But then again, if you really more focused on comfort, if comfort is your number one focus, then you should not go with the ST line suspension and just pick with the base ones. It's just a matter of preference. And do you want it sportier or do you want it more comfortable? You feel it, especially when you're going over some potholes. That's the difference, and where it gets a little bit less comfortable, but all in an area where we would say this is still okay to drive around every day as well. Here again, very cool and turnabout, how the car reacts spontaneously. And the engine can also be driven as also as you're hearing it in a very calm way. This turbo petrol engine, in normal city traffic and stuff, you don't feel as it would be underpowered. It just has 1 liter of displacement. I'm usually a little bit critical about this downsizing stuff, as it sometimes doesn't do much benefit for the customer than just for the driving cycles, for the official ones, where the manufacturers then save some fuel or CO2 figures in their whole fleet setup. But we'll see how that one plays out also on the motorway, and we'll also take a look at the consumption for you of this engine then towards the end of this driving part, when we have some city cruising here combined. It's quite warm today outside, so we also have the AC powered on. Very interesting it was, by the way, when we were standing still and had the AC on full power, just from the empty run of the engine plus AC, was 1.5 liters on 100 kilometers. So that's an AC can easily cost you a half liter, maybe 1 liter on 100 kilometers when it's really fully powered. This 3-cylinder, by the way, as soon as you push it a little bit more, it has a very unique sound, and sometimes I really feel that the sound would be better than in the 4-cylinders. Now we're accelerating from 30 to 70. Plop, that's it. I think the sound is somehow nice, this 3-cylinder sound. We also have those assistance systems here. In this case, the adaptive cruise control is built in the vehicle. You can set it here on the left side of the steering wheel, and then the distance to the car in front of you is being kept. You do the lane change right there. And now just a little bit reduction in speed, that the correct distance is being kept. You can also change the distance quite here in 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels, how far you want that distance to be. Now at about 70, let's do a quick lane change again. Wow. So Holger's getting shaken around by those lane changes. Haha. Camera equipment flying all over the car. So again, it feels really go-kart alike, although we are in this compact hatch segment. So indeed a very sporty approach they have been taken here, and the driving dynamics, suspension, shifting, steering feeling, that's one thing where Ford is usually on the top of the game, and it's also the case here for the new Ford Focus. Now let's see the AC. Oh, there was a car leaving. That can be dangerous for those ACC systems when the car is driving, changing lanes, and the next car is standing still. Then some ACC systems do not realize what's happening. So pay attention. Do not 100% rely on that, because standing still objects can be a problem for those automatic systems. But you can see the speed has been reduced. Here, of course, with the manual gearbox, not that comfortable as you would have with the automatic gearbox, where it's really possible to reduce until 0. Here at some point the engine would be stalled, so I guess the car will say at about 30 kilometers, sorry, hit the clutch, or I just deactivate the ACC system. At the moment I'm not doing anything with the throttle. I just have it in 3rd gear and let the car do its job, so you can see that it really works. And we head on to the motorway to show you some more performance of the engine. What's also interesting is this cruise control. Is it being kept when you change gears? Sometimes that's the case, sometimes not. Let's go from 3rd to 4th. Yes, in this case it's being kept, that's good, and also comfortable, so you don't have to reset it newly when you change the gears. I like that. So now we can also get some flexibility, acceleration, 60 to 100 in the 3rd gear. And let's go. Plop. There we are. So, for sure not a racing car with this 1-liter turbo petrol engine, but it's enough with this turbo that you can still have something of an acceleration. You know, even if you just have this small engine, it's still okay. You have some power reserve that you can still do some overtaking maneuvers. Now we're heading onto the motorway. I really love that steering setup. Not too good for co-drivers though. So I go back to the 2nd gear. Very good handling again in this corner onto the motorway. Now you hear that 3-cylinder sound. And let's head on here. The engine really stays relatively silent, so the engine is very well insulated from the rest of the cabin. Now we're already at about 80 kilometers again. Of course, usually a lot of traffic on the motorway. Ford Ranger in front of us. Let's see if we can accelerate here. Yeah, you have to push the engine that something is coming then, but I mean, it's still okay. If you have a lot of motorway commuting with a lot of overtaking, maybe that's you should then step up the game, go for the bigger petrol engine. For all others, for primarily rather calm and city purposes, you can also save money and stay with this engine. Again, it won't be that powerful, but for most cases it will still be enough. Now we can also go to the 6th gear and see that where we can just roll with just over 100 kilometers an hour in cruise control. Then we're just above 2000 RPM. Of course, that would be a little bit lower than maybe with a bigger displacement figure in the engine, but still, it's relatively silent. You hardly hear the engine at all. And also the rest of the noise insulation is again quite decent. So this is again one thing they've really been working on. So 100 is a very good, it's about just over 60 miles an hour. There's a good travel speed here for this vehicle, and as soon as we're allowed to, we'll also drive a little bit faster to see where does this comfortable travel speed noise-wise end. This will also be very interesting. Here again, cruise control, now steadily getting a speed back. Those outside mirrors, by the way, you can adjust them electronically. Also, while driving, sometimes maybe need some adjustment. We don't have a blind spot monitor inbuilt here. but actually they're a little bit curved, so you don't have so much blind spot. The overview to the rear is also quite good. The B-pillar, of course, as for those compact hatches, they're usually pretty thick, so this could be a little bit better overview, but to the rear is still quite okay. Here we can also, by the way, very stable at higher speeds. Again, with the sport suspension, you stress that a little bit more, and also with this very compact steering wheel you have. That's again well done by Ford. So this is definitely the strength of this vehicle. So we've driven some city now. We had some acceleration in there, and now also maybe at a little steadier speed. What does the consumption figure say so far? And well, my guess would be, you know, for those compact hatches, usually also with bigger displacement figures, we have maybe some 8 liters on 100 kilometers. That would be, you know, a rather standard figure. And what do we have? What does the car tell us at the moment? Let's see. So at the moment it says 6.5, and this is quite decent. So 6 liters we sometimes have with small segment cars, and considering we also had an acceleration in there, I think that's quite good. So I'm positively surprised by that, because as I said earlier, driving dynamics wise, Ford is quite often very good, but then again we had sometimes crazy consumption figures with those Ford engines, and negatively crazy consumption figures. So I'm really happy that today, it seems, with the new Ford Focus, maybe also because it has lost some weight, and also in combination with the manual gearbox, where the automatic gearbox probably will add something to the consumption. So, but here it really seems like that they have also worked on the consumption, and all of those new engine, they also comply with the Euro 6 D-Temp norm, with the newest regulations, and for the emissions will be different outside EU markets, of course, because they don't pay so much attention to petrol particle filters in this case. Well, and now we can have another bigger acceleration. Let's go to third gear and accelerate out from 86. Fourth gear, 112 that was. So you see, when you're gaining speed on the motorway, here with this engine it takes some time, definitely. So again, if you're more on the way on the motorway, then pick the bigger displacement petrol engine. If you have primarily city use, then you can also stay with the smaller engine. And again, I'm really surprised that sometimes we have those smaller engines and we have higher consumption, but in this case it really seems to be the case that it's okay. And we can also drive a little bit faster now. This is actually a part where you can have unlimited speed on the motorway. And when we are in Germany testing the vehicles, we always include more motorway, because that's something we cannot do in this extent when we do it somewhere else. Then we, for example, include more city driving and countryside driving. And now at about 140 kilometers an hour, it still remains relatively silent in the interior. So again, proves my point that the noise insulation is something they've been working on best. I think good integration. And now, by the way, against the blue sky here, which is very nice to look at it, but I'm really annoyed by the small lines in the windscreen. You know, it's meanwhile also possible in a more expensive way. The Golf does have that with a foil inside, so you don't see those those small orange lines inside there. But this one here is the cheaper solution. Ford was the first manufacturer to get a patent on that, and it also has a very high take rate. So a lot of Ford customers do take. I think in Germany even 2/3 of the Ford customers take this heated windscreen. But for me, it's really annoying. I don't like to look through that. If you look just on the road, you don't see it that much, but against the sky, you see that quite a lot. But again, I also had feedback here. You can tell me also in the comments that some say, I don't really see it, you know? That maybe depends on the eyes or how well you can concentrate on those very details. But then again, if you're in somewhere where you have a harsh winter and you don't have a place to park your car inside, then of course it can get a little annoying as well if you have no possibility to defrost your windscreen properly. Also comfort-wise, by the way, so far I'm positively surprised. So seating position-wise, comfort-wise, they also worked on the vehicle. And the compact segment is where I, as a rather tall driver, sometimes have problems in seating comfort. Not always, but sometimes. So I really like compact size cars where you have good long-term comfort. One of the best among that was the Honda Civic, the new generation, because it already comes close to a mid-size segment car. It means you have some more room inside. It feels a little bit bigger already. And of course the Volkswagen Golf is also among the comfort kings still in the compact segment. And then there were other cars where you would say, yeah, okay, for taller drivers maybe go for a compact SUV or for a mid-size sedan and not for a compact hatch. But here so far it does quite well. And this is also to me a difference to the Ford Fiesta. The Fiesta is great fun to ride, especially the ST, which we have recently tested. So much fun to drive that car. But comfort-wise, for my size, I mean, it might be different if you're smaller, but I do feel a comfort difference here between the Focus and the Fiesta clearly. So on, you know, longer motorway trips or something, I would really prefer to have the Focus than the Fiesta. That's, you know, just have a little bit more room for your legs especially. That's, I think, the biggest difference between them. Here, by the way, free roads behind us. You get some smaller lane change again, also to wake Holger up. Okay, that was a little bit evil to me. Now someone will say that time code, like where we are, like my 38.21 or whatever. Oh, look at that bird on the prey bird there on the sign. Very interesting. Someone will say, listen to that laughter at this time code. The evil Thomas laughter. So some more 50 kilometers now, countryside or outside rural city street. Again, motorway worked quite well with the car. Overall, what they have achieved is it doesn't feel totally different than you would have it from the previous generation. The same thing that happens on the exterior and the interior also happened with the driving. A slight evolution, refining the car in every detail. And I think that's very well done. So on the negative side, it is that it's by no means, you know, a spectacular car or something completely different or so. And it doesn't feel like it would be a super new car. So if someone would tell me, you know, this car now is like 2 or 3 years old, I would say, yeah, okay, I believe that. So that's the negative side of it. And the positive side is that when you directly compare them, the previous generation here of the Focus, you feel that they have improved the car in every single notch. And the overall picture, then you would say, is really well done, and probably also one of the main reasons why this car is so well sold worldwide. Now let's try a U-turn also with a turning circle. Oh, that also feels quite good. So one of the main reasons then for the success is that in so many respects this car is really pure solid. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Ford Focus. It is for sure not a revolution, but a slight evolution in all different pieces. Exterior a little bit more dynamic even in the standard versions. So nowadays normal Ford Focus, especially here with the ST line, maybe looks like an ST or somewhat like an RS from the past versions. So base models already a little bit sportier in the look. Then from the interior we have a little bit more room. Also the materials are a little bit more quality, also cleaner than with the new infotainment system or modern. So every little bit has been updated, and I think that's also a very good approach. What about the driving? Well, the sound insulation is better now. That is probably the biggest difference. Other than that, the driving dynamics and also, you know, how shifting and steering feel and so on, that's something where Ford was always very good at, and they also refined it a little bit more. You'll also be fine with the smaller engines if you have primarily, you know, city use. The turbo will still also work on the motorway. And it's also good that we have this new 8-speed automatic gearbox. I'm really looking forward to test that one at a later stage together with a petrol engine, which wasn't here on location today, the combination petrol and automatic. Because they also had some problem with the past automatic versions. Now the new ones supposed to work even better and also very reliable. That's what they say. So what do you think actually? Would you prefer the 5-door or would you prefer the Estate? And what do you think about the all-new Ford Focus? Tell me your opinion in the comments and also tune in next time.